Here's something nobody tells you. The IRS could fill out your taxes for you. It already has the numbers. It could mail you a finished form. You check it, sign it, and be done. No shoebox, no software. Most of the rich world already works exactly like that. You never do the math. The math just gets done. It almost happened here too, not once, 3 times. 3 different times America nearly killed tax season for good. And every single time at the last minute, somebody made sure it didn't. Somebody you have probably paid. This is the story of how doing your own taxes by hand every spring became American on purpose. Settle in, pour yourself something. By the end of this, you're going to see April a whole lot differently. Every spring, the same thing happens in about 150 million American homes. The dread sets in. Drawer full of forms you don't understand. The shoebox of receipts. The little knot in your stomach. You sit down at the kitchen table or you open up an app and you start copying numbers. Numbers off a piece of paper your boss already mailed to the government. You're just telling them what they know. And if you get one of those numbers wrong, even by accident, the most powerful agency in the country comes knocking. So you pay for help. Maybe a guy at a strip mall desk. Maybe software that promised you one thing. It said free, 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 right there in the commercial. And then somewhere around the end, $40. Americans spend around 13 hours and a few $100s every year just to file each year. Add it all up and we burn about 6 billion hours a year on our taxes. 6 billion. The government's own watchdog says it's like 3 million people working full-time just on the paperwork. Now, here's the part that ought to stop you cold. In most wealthy countries, none of this happens. No shoebox, no software, no dread. For a lot of folks over there, tax season barely even exists. They didn't get lucky. They didn't have simpler lives. They just built it different. And we didn't. Which raises a question most of us never think to ask. Why do we do it this way? Why, in the richest country on earth, are you the one stuck doing the math? Is it freedom? Tradition? Some founding principle older than the flag? That's what I always figured. But the truth turned out to be a story about a war, a department store, and one very stubborn company. And once you see how all 3 fit together, you cannot unsee it. Let's start at the beginning. For most of American history, there was no tax season, no 1040, no April, nothing, because there was no income tax. It only shows up in 1913 when the Constitution gets a new amendment letting Washington tax what you earn. And that first tax, it was a tax on the rich, and I mean the truly rich. The first tax form was 4 pages long, 4, and almost nobody had to fill it out. You owed nothing on your first $3,000, back when most families never saw $3,000. Fewer than 1 in 100 Americans even qualified. The top rate, 7%, on the Rockefellers of the world. That very first year, only about 350,000 returns came in. The whole country. For 30 years, it stayed that way. A rich man's tax. Your grandparents likely never filed a thing. Then came the war, the big one, World War II. And wars cost money, more money than anybody had ever spent. Washington needed cash on a scale that a little tax on millionaires could never, ever raise. So in 1942, Congress passed what folks called the greatest tax bill in American history. And everything changed. They dropped the line. Suddenly, it wasn't just the rich who owed. It was the factory worker, the clerk, you. In 1939, fewer than 4 million Americans paid income tax. A few years later, over 40 million. Historians have a name for that moment. They call it the shift from a class tax to a mass tax. Overnight, the income tax stopped being something rich men dealt with and became something everybody dealt with. Washington had a brand new problem. A working man didn't have a big pile of savings. Ask him to write one giant check to the government every spring, and he simply could not pay it. They needed the money sooner. They needed it steady. They needed it before you ever got your hands on it. And the man who solved that problem wasn't a senator or an economist. He sold things for a living. His name was Beardsley Rumel. By day, he was the treasurer of Macy's, the department store. And Rumel understood something most taxmen didn't. He understood how to sell people on an idea. His idea was simple. Stop waiting for people to pay. Take the tax straight out of the paycheck before they see it. We call it withholding. Look at your pay stub, that chunk that's gone before you're paid. That's Rummel's idea. People don't like new taxes pulled from their checks. So Rummel, the salesman, gave them a gift. Switch to the new way, he said, and we'll forgive a whole year of the taxes you already owe. One of Washington's own taxmen grumbled that Rummel had sold the public a very white rabbit, a magic trick. It worked. In 1943, withholding became law, and the modern paycheck, the one you know, was born. One of the young men who helped build that withholding machine was an economist named Milton Friedman. He'd go on to become one of the most famous champions of small government the country ever produced. And for the rest of his life, he carried a quiet regret about what he'd helped create during that war. Now, stop right here, because this is where it gets strange. Withholding should have ended tax season. Think about it. If the government's already pulling the tax out of your check, why do you file anything? In a lot of countries, that's exactly the deal. They take the right amount and you're done forever. But America didn't build it that way. America takes a guess out of your paycheck. Just a guess. A pretty good guess, but a guess. And every April, you're the one who has to settle up. They take too much. You get a refund. Too little. You owe. Either way, you do the reconciling. And the reason it's only a guess comes down to everything your boss can't possibly know about your life. Your boss doesn't know if you had a baby, or bought a house, or gave to your church. He doesn't know about your second job, your side gig, the savings account, the kid in college. And here's the thing Americans almost never realize. A huge chunk of our safety net runs through that tax form. Help for working parents, money back for low-income families. We don't mail those as checks. We run them through taxes. So the form isn't just counting what you made. It's deciding what help you get. That's why it's so tangled. Your employer takes a guess all year, and then you, at the kitchen table, fix the guess. That's the system. Okay. So that explains why some kind of yearly filing exists. Fair enough, a guess needs settling, but it does not explain the shoebox, the dread, the $40 free software. That part is a choice. Because here's what they don't show you on the news. Other countries reconcile that same guess easily. They have working parents, mortgages, side gigs, same messy lives we do. And they don't lose a weekend over it. Take Sweden. Over there, the government does the math first, then sends you a return that's already filled in. You look it over. If it's right, you reply to a text message, and your taxes are done. Estonia might be the wildest. You log in, you glance at the numbers, you click once. 3 minutes, done. Nearly everyone there files online, and they're almost proud of it. It's that fast, that painless. In Britain, most working people never file a tax return at all. Not ever. The system just handles it. Same in Japan. Your employer squares it up at year's end, and the whole thing disappears. No April, no dread. This isn't one or two oddball countries. Around 2/3 of the wealthy world fills in your return for you. Denmark started doing it back in the 1980s. While we were renting VHS tapes, they were ending tax season. And the obvious question is, how? How can they do it when we're told it's impossible here? The answer is the part that should make your jaw drop, because we could do it too easily. Remember, your boss already sends your wages straight to the government. Your bank already reports your interest. By the time you sit down to do your taxes, the IRS already has most of your numbers. It knows. Researchers actually measured this. They found the IRS could correctly fill in tens of millions of returns right now. For something like 4 in 10 taxpayers, the government could just do it, and you'd never touch a form. We even got a peek at how much people want this. When the IRS finally offered to fill in the numbers it had, more than 9 out of 10 folks said yes, yes, please. Just use the numbers you already have. So it's not that it can't be done. It's not too complicated. It's not some special American problem. The technology is here. The data is here. The proof is sitting in 24 other countries. Which brings us back to the only question that matters. If we could end tax season, why haven't we? And the answer is we tried. We came right up to the edge of it more than once. This is the part of the story they really don't teach you. America almost ended tax season 3 separate times. First time might surprise you because of who said it. It was Ronald Reagan, 1985. Reagan stood up in the White House and made working Americans a genuine promise about their taxes. He said one day as many as half of all taxpayers wouldn't have to fill out a tax form at all. He even had a nickname for it. He called it the zero form. Nothing to fill out. Zero. Picture that. A Republican president standing in the East Room promising to make tax forms disappear for half the country. It didn't happen, but the dream didn't die because the idea was just too good and too obvious. Fast forward to 1998, Congress actually puts it in writing, a law, an honest-to-God federal law. It told the Treasury to build a system where regular people wouldn't have to file and gave them a deadline. That deadline came and went. The system never got built. The law just quietly evaporated. We'll come back to why. Then comes the third time. And this time, it wasn't a speech or a promise. Somebody actually built it. Out in California, a Stanford professor named Joseph Bankman had the same simple idea. The state already had your wage information, so why not fill in people's tax returns for them, for real? They called it Ready Return. The state did the math, mailed you a finished return, and you just checked it. In 2005, they sent it to about 50,000 Californians, and the people who used it loved it. 99% said they'd use it again. 99. You can't get 99% of folks to agree on anything. It was simple. It was free. It worked. And people adored it. It was everything the system should be. An economist even ran the numbers for a nationwide version. The savings were staggering. Hundreds of millions of hours, billions of dollars, handed back to ordinary Americans every single year. So here you got a thing that's proven, cheap, popular, and ready to go. This should be the happy ending. The president wanted it. Congress ordered it. A professor built it, and people begged for more of it. 3 runs at the goal line. 3. And somehow every time the ball got knocked away at the last second. So who keeps knocking it away? To answer that, you have to follow the money. And the money leads to one industry. Think about who would lose if your taxes suddenly became free and automatic. Picture their whole business gone. The strip mall tax desks, the big name software, an entire industry that exists for one reason: filing is hard. In America, helping people file their taxes is roughly a $14 billion business every year, like clockwork. And at the top sit 2 giants, H&R Block and the maker of TurboTax, a company called Intuit. Now, if you sell the cure, the last thing on earth you want is for the government to hand out the cure for free. So back in the early 2000s, that industry and the IRS sat down and made a deal, a quiet one. The company said, we'll offer free online filing to most Americans. You won't have to lift a finger. Sounds great, right? But there was a catch buried in that deal, and the catch is the whole story. In exchange, the IRS promised something. It promised it would not build its own free filing tool, ever. Read that again. The government agreed to stay out of the free filing business and leave it to the industry. That promise, that one sentence, is a big part of why your taxes still aren't free today. Remember that 1998 law, the one that just evaporated? This is what evaporated it. This deal. On paper, it looked like a gift to the public. Around 70% of Americans qualified to file free. In reality, almost nobody did. Year after year, the free version sat there, used by barely a few million people. So what happened to it? Why didn't anybody use the free thing they were promised? Well, that was the point. For 20 years, the truth stayed hidden until a team of reporters cracked the whole thing wide open. They found the companies had quietly made their free products almost impossible to actually find. Here's the trick that got me. TurboTax added a line of code to its own free page, a secret instruction. That code told Google, do not show this page. Hide it. So when people searched free tax filing, the genuinely free version was nowhere to be found. They had told the search engines to bury it. And H&R Block, they did the very same thing. Hid their free product from the people it was made for. So where did your search send you instead? To a product also called free that funneled you toward paying. It was free until it wasn't. One more form, one more screen, and suddenly that'll be $40. Even inside the company, folks knew. One internal note admitted customers were getting upset. They'd been promised free. Millions of people who could have filed for nothing paid anyway to one company that was over $1 billion a year. And to make sure no one in Washington fixed it, the industry did what industries do. It spent. Over the years, these two companies poured more than $100 million into lobbying. $100 million. Every time someone proposed free, simple, automatic taxes, a bill, a pilot, an idea, the money showed up to stop it. That California program people loved, the makers of TurboTax, spent over $1 million to help kill it. Reagan's dream, the 1998 law, ready, return. Now you know what knocked the ball away every single time. It wasn't that it couldn't be done. It's that somebody was making a fortune, making sure it wasn't. For 2 decades, it worked beautifully. The deal held. The free version stayed hidden. The money kept rolling in. But when those reporters finally dragged it into the daylight, things started to come apart fast. People were furious, and it turned out hiding free from the very people promised free is a problem in court. In 2022, the maker of TurboTax agreed to pay $141 million to settle. That money went back to about 4.5 million low-income Americans, folks who'd been steered into paying. People who could have filed for nothing and got charged anyway, now getting a small check years later. Then the government's own trade watchdog weighed in on all those free commercials. It ruled the ads were deceptive because roughly 2/3 of people who saw them couldn't actually file free. 100 million Americans told it was free, when, for most of them, it just plain wasn't. The company fought the ruling and the fines every step of the way, but the damage was done. The mask was off, and quietly, the old deal fell apart. The IRS finally tore up that promise to stay out of free filing. It even banned the search hiding trick, the secret code that buried the free pages. Outlawed, just like that. One by one, the big companies walked away from the free program they'd spent 20 years hollowing out. H&R Block left. Then the maker of TurboTax left, too. The whole arrangement collapsed. After 20 years, the wall that kept the government out of free filing finally had a crack in it. And through that crack, for one brief, shining moment, the thing America kept almost doing actually got built. Because in 2022, the IRS finally got the money and the green light to build the thing itself for real. A free tool, straight from the government. You file your taxes directly, online, for nothing. They called it Direct File. It was the zero form. Reagan's promise. The ready return dream. 40 years later, finally real. They tested it carefully. In 2024, a dozen states, about 140,000 people used it. And the reviews? 90% rated it excellent. People said it actually made them trust the IRS more. Think about how rare that is. A government website that people liked, that worked, that was free. So the next year, they grew it. 25 states, hundreds of thousands of filers, even higher marks. For the first time in American history, a regular person could file straight to the government, free, in minutes. The thing we'd been told was impossible was sitting right there on a screen working. People loved it. And that is exactly when the industry spent more on lobbying than it ever had in its life. In a single year, those two companies poured over $7 million into Washington, a record. It spent 20 years keeping this tool from being born. They were not about to let it grow up. And this time, they had help. A new administration came in, looking to cut government down to the bone. Early in 2025, the team building direct file was told to stop. Just stop. Put the tools down. The man leading the cost cutting posted a single word about the project online. Deleted by that summer, the head of the IRS said it flat out. You've heard of direct file? That's gone. They said it cost too much. That barely anyone used it, that the private companies could do it better. And in November of 2025, it was official. Direct File, the free tool that worked, was shut down. Funded, built, tested, loved, and killed in about 3 years. The fourth time America almost ended tax season. And the fourth time somebody made sure it didn't. Same playbook, same industry, same result as always. So today, you're right back where you started. The shoebox, the dread, the software that says free. Not because it has to be this way, not because it's hard, but because somebody profits from your afternoon lost. 6 billion hours a year. Money out of your pocket for a number the government already had the whole time. So the next time you're at that kitchen table in April, cursing at a form, I want you to remember something. This was never an accident. It wasn't tradition. It sure wasn't freedom. It was a choice. Somebody's choice. A choice made in boardrooms and lobbyist offices, renewed every year with millions of dollars in your name. Other folks in other countries get a text message. You get a weekend gone and a few $100 lighter. The good news, a thing built by choice can be UN built by choice. We came within an inch of it 4 times. It is not impossible. We have the proof. The only thing missing was letting it survive. So now you know, not just that tax season is miserable, but exactly who keeps it that way and why.